Yeah, absolutely. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Excited to see your comments. I'm Ada from Stellar Development Foundation, and I am here with Harshi from Near. Do you want to intro yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Harshit. I lead strategy at Nia Foundation. Been with Nia for close to 5 years now. I'm very excited for this partnership.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the few sort of cross-chain partnerships that have happened since I've been at Stellar Development Foundation. So bringing Near and Stellar together came about because of Near Intents, which enables seamless native swaps across over 20 chains, including Stellar now. It was just launched. And there's no bridge, no waiting, no complex workflows, and it's really decentralized. So today on this stream, we're going to dive into what makes this integration exciting and unique and some of the really awesome functionality that it brings to the Stellar ecosystem. So so I lead DeFi partnerships at Stellar Development Foundation, and it's an exciting time. Our DeFi ecosystem is growing a lot. We just launched smart contracts about 18 months ago in the form of Vaughan. And there have been a lot of really cool, like literally hundreds of projects building and coming up in our ecosystem. So it's an exciting time. And Harshit, talk about what's going on at Near.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so first of all, we've been big admirers of Stellar for a while. We definitely acknowledge the hard work that Stellar has put into onboarding institutions and developers into the ecosystem. So certainly something we take inspiration from. On the Near ecosystem, I mean, on our side, we certainly believe in the vision of chain abstraction. We believe the future is certainly multi-chain, and we really have a role to play here with Near's technology to enable a seamless world where users across chains can exchange value and assets without really having to depend on rickety bridges and these avenues which are vulnerable. So yeah.
Yeah, it just went live August 19th, so it's about the integration's about 10 days old.
Yeah.
What made you choose Stellar? Why Stellar for Near Intents?
Yeah, I think it was a no-brainer. I mean, from our point of view, we want to offer literally all assets on any chains to users, and really going down the list of okay, which ecosystem do we partner with? Stellar was one of the first ecosystems that came to our mind for a few reasons. I mean, the work that the Stellar ecosystem has put in primarily to onboard DeFi protocols after the launch of the Soroban smart contract environment was something that inspired us. And then more importantly, actually, seeing the emergence of stellar native applications and developers building around payments and utility for DeFi was something that we really wanted to let users across crypto tap into. So that was the key motivator for us to reach out to the seller team and work on this partnership together.
How did you find, so you have a lot of chains, right? 20 plus chains. How did the integration on Stellar compared to other integrations? Like, what would you call out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from our point of view, it was really no different than many of our non-EVM chain integrations. So one of the advantages that Near Intents has over any other interoperability protocol out there is for us integrating a new chain or a novel smart contract environment is really not that hard because we have several ways to communicate with other blockchains. So we have this MPC network on the Near blockchain, which is called Chain Signatures, a subset of Near validators, which allows a smart contract on Near to call other smart contracts on other blockchains or sign transactions on other blockchains. So we actually started experimenting with Stellar using Chain Signatures about a year ago, and we were quite impressed by how smooth it was. So when we shipped Near Intents in production, we started building a communication layer between Stellar and the Near mainnet, and we actually collaborated with Hot, which is another team which builds at the intersection of Near and Stellar. They extended their bridge support, which we actually natively use for asset deposits and withdrawals. And yeah, we just built on top of what we already had to deliver this experience.
Cool. So I just figured out how to open the comments chat. I was looking at a different screen before. So I want to say hi to folks who have joined on the chat. Nesmar42, hi Senegal, Lumen Loop, Mute XLM, and the Kings. Thanks very much for joining. They changed the logo back to Stellar, back to the rocket. I do like the rocket. I use that privately in Slack all the time, and we do love our rocket. But yes, thank you for that. So could you back up for just a moment and talk about intense-based swaps? I'm wondering if everyone who's listening already knows what an intense-based system does.
Yeah, absolutely. So the most simple way to understand near intents or just intents in general is it enables a unified liquidity layer across all chains, and any user that basically wants to execute any action on chain just has to specify the outcome, and then it's the blockchain and the infra that is then figuring out the routes, the dependencies, and any liquidity or resources needed to get to that outcome. So as a user, you really do not have to worry about, or should not have to worry about, which routes to take, which asset token standards to take care of, where to bridge your tokens, where to wrap your tokens. All of this is abstracted using an intent-based technology, which then delivers the specific outcome for users. Now, in this very case, for Stellar, we basically allow swaps from any native assets such as Bitcoin, Dogecoin, XRP, Litecoin, you name it, to XLM and USDC on Stellar seamlessly with just one click of a button.
That is really cool. And it's a great example of some of the most used assets on Stellar, like gaining new access points, which is why we were so excited about the integration. And you mentioned Hot Wallet as well. They've been a great partner, offering, they have dozens, thousands of assets. I think you can discover almost any asset on any chain that they support. But when they started incorporating Stellar, the need for swaps was evident, right? People have different assets, especially Bitcoin is still dominant. And so being able to swap, from Bitcoin into XLM or Solana into XLM, it's a pretty interesting workflow. I love how the decentralized aspect of it, like when I started learning about intents, I thought, well, this is exactly how it should be, right? It's like you kind of put a job out there, like I want to get from this asset and end in this other asset, and all the steps in between, you kind of don't care how that gets done. And then you can have different participants who have different liquidity of different assets, all kind of atomically performing a different step in the process to get you from that one asset to the other asset. So I was really excited to learn about near intents and to see it integrated. Could you give an example of a use case that's uniquely able to be done with near intents, or is just much, much easier?
Yeah, absolutely. So what users will see now is actually the first iteration of near intents, where swaps or cross-chain spot trading is just an example use case. The use cases that we can further enable built on top of this primitive of cross-chain spot trading, you can take lending, for example, and we actually have teams, again, building at the intersection of near and stellar ecosystems, catering to this lending side of things, where you can create permissionless money markets or isolated vaults with XLM tokens or yield bearing assets on the Stellar network, and allow anyone to deposit assets, provide double sided liquidity, or tap into an AMM on Stellar using near intents, providing liquidity into that AMM with whatever asset as collateral. So that's, again, a very high level overview of some use cases that can be enabled immediately if builders want to take that route. The other more long-term use cases would be along the lines of payments and agentic commerce. So I'll talk about this in a bit if we have time, but one of our visions is actually enabling a world where agents can seamlessly communicate with each other compliantly, both on-chain and off-chain using crypto assets. And I do see a big possibility here for XLM holders or Stellar ecosystem developers to tap into that economic layer.
For the capability that has just been launched now, what do you see being accessed so far? Like what's happening in terms of development? Is it people coming to a public facing UX, like just coming to a website and using it? Is it developers connecting to it? Like what are the corridors that are being used right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've seen some traction on the default front end. So we have app.near-intents.org, which is the primary front end for near intents. Then we have an API which extends near intents to other front ends and third-party front ends and wallets. So we have Trust Wallet, Infinex, TiberSwap, ThorSwap, and a bunch of front ends that use near intents via one-click swap API. We've actually seen decent inbounds from these ecosystem partners wanting to enable spot trading for Stellar against Bitcoin or Solana or ETH, enabling users or holders from these ecosystems to tap into the XLM token after the announcement. And as for developers, we actually have seen a lot of requests in our dev channels on Telegram where people are experimenting with their own front ends. I'll call out Surge. He's a very prolific builder in the Near ecosystem. He's a one-man army. He's shipped Surge Swap. It took him less than 2 hours to enable XLM support after the announcement using one-click swap API, and you can now experience XLM trading on Surge Swap as well.
That's awesome. So from a developer standpoint, it's just like an easy access point if they're already working with Near. Or did he already have Near Intents enabled for other assets and he turned on Stellar, or did he start?
He actually had Near Intents enabled, yeah, and all he needed to do was turn on the one-click swap API that came with the Stellar announcement, and that was it.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully a lot more folks will check out that API. Maybe at the end of our chat, we can post a link for people to access it if there are developers on the feed. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in DeFi, like, you know, my job is to grow DeFi activity and like bring more builders and to grow the ecosystem with all of the different primitives. But DeFi is still, you know, you'll hear this probably in every chat. DeFi is still pretty complicated for the typical user, even crypto native users. A lot of the protocols just they're complicated to use and understand. How do you see Near Intent simplifying the DeFi experience for users?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I mean, we also certainly believe that while TradFi is now warming up to DeFi, the ecosystem is still very nascent. We are not at primitive parity with Web 2. So one way we think about Near Intents is not only making complex DeFi actions and strategies more simple for the end user or any stakeholder, but enabling a net new set of use cases which are crypto native and only possible in a seamless cross-chain environment. So one idea that we have, or an example to share with the users here, is let's take derivatives, for example. The dominant part of trading in the real world is not spot trading, it's derivatives. But crypto is yet to catch up with the real world in terms of derivatives activity and volume. Although we've seen great examples such as Hyperliquid and stuff in the recent months, but enabling any asset such as XLM to be used as collateral on a cross-chain derivative protocol that could live inside a TEE in a trusted execution environment, fully decentralized. No one can take it down. I think that would be pretty powerful because that not only allows seamless interoperability and composability of assets, but also truly unlocks the vision that we had in our minds for DeFi. So again, these are things that sound very simple, but are still not true in crypto, even after 9 or 12 years of innovation on DeFi. And I think we are now getting close with primitives like Intents and other interop solutions to make them possible.
Yeah. I'll expand on what you said. Like while you were talking, it made me think about just asset availability as well. Like we have just a constant flow of new assets being issued, right? So how do you get these assets? And it's something that you could have these fabulous RWAs and even permissionless RWAs that are being issued, but they're hard to get, right? They're not on centralized exchanges. You can't just go to the Bitcoin ATM and buy them. There's no retail access point. And so a lot of times swapping into those assets is the way that it all happens. And if Near Intents is an easy way to enable new assets for developers, I could see it being really, really important to the growth of DeFi and like expanding, like you said, getting assets as collateral on different chains, et cetera.
For sure.
Which is actually a good thing. I will sidebar and answer one of the questions in the chat, which is Al Sayed was asking about the PayPal partnership. When will it move forward? It is moving forward as we speak, and stay tuned for big announcements about PayPal and lots of other things at Meridian, which is Stellar's flagship conference in Rio de Janeiro, September 17th and 18th. So I will say, stay tuned for the big announcements. But yeah, PayPal is a super exciting partner. And another example of one of these assets that needs distribution, right? PYUSD is coming into market on a variety of chains, and it's I think it's positioned to be a really useful asset in the Stellar ecosystem. And definitely got my eye on it for DeFi. So back to near intense and kind of the builder perspective. I'd love to touch a little bit more since you have such deep technical expertise. It's awesome to kind of share some of the knowledge around on the back end, like when near intense is enabled for an app or dApp, like what does it get them? What do you think is, why would I want to go enable this versus some other mechanism for swapping?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll actually touch upon the points you mentioned briefly about asset issuance and try to bridge the two. So think of it this way: when you have PYUSD on Stellar, it would be very easy for us to enable support for PYUSD or any asset on the Stellar network in the coming weeks. All out of the box for any builders in the Stellar ecosystem and create liquid markets within their application experience. So their users do not have to leave the application experience and they will get access to liquid markets of tokens on the Stellar blockchain natively within their app. So that's one advantage for the users. The second advantage is the time to market. So, the thing with bridges in general or other avenues to onboard into the Stellar ecosystem conventionally would be it would take a lot of development effort and time to do a lot of QA testing, to integrate manually with a number of different infrastructure components. With Near Intents and our one-click swap API, we basically offer all of these things out of the box to developers, reducing the time to market significantly because we actually believe that development cycles shortened can lead to a step level increase in development productivity and go to market for teams. So these two benefits are actually the biggest advantages that any developers can have if they were to choose Near Intents over any other solutions.
So do you think ease of implementation, like, is that something you hear pretty frequently from
Yeah.
the developers? Yeah. I mean, it is like, it's very different, right? It's a very different paradigm than other kinds of services that they might connect to. So I am interested to see like how it expands, and I love the flexibility of it, right? That it's kind of any asset, it with the, handling like all the routing, all the transaction signing, everything like is just handled. You don't have to figure that out. So I think it's pretty powerful. So what's next for Near Intense on Stellar? I will transition to
Yeah.
forward-looking statements here.
Yeah, and I think we'll share some alpha here as well. So definitely want to enable more assets on Near Intents on the Stellar network. So allowing creation of liquid markets for a stable coin on Stellar, and allowing any holders of, let's say, meme coins on Solana or Base to tap into these assets on Stellar is something we're quite excited about. Then the next thing would be we've built the unified liquidity layer and extended this to Stellar. Now we're quite excited to see second layer applications emerge on top of Near Intents and some of the things that our team itself is experimenting. So you'll see things like streaming swaps, escrow intents, things like cross-chain lending, derivatives. All of these things will then be immediately available out of the box to any developer that wants to enable these as feature updates in their application. So we will make some updates to the one-click swap API, extend it to the Stellar network, and we will enable, I would say, sometime in Q1 or Q2 next year, iterations of agentic commerce on Near Intents as well. So our team is actively working on agent-to-agent transaction without the intervention of humans. Once you specify an intent, it really is then the job of your agent to go and figure out the best way to get yield on the assets for you or discover certain assets that get immediately created on a liquid market. All of these will be done using Near Intents very soon.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm going to encourage anyone who is listening. I see we have a few different channels coming up in the chat to post any questions. I'm going to ask one more and then we're going to go to audience questions. So anything that you want to know about Near Intents on Stellar and how it works, just post it in the chat. So for builders who are considering an integration, like, what do they need to do? How do they go about starting to integrate Near Intensive Bit? Let's say they've never touched Near, they don't know anything about Near, but they're thinking like, wow, maybe I want to get Stellar assets into my app or do something with cross-chain swaps for the first time. Like, what do they need to know?
Yeah, they actually don't need to know anything about Near. Exactly. So the good thing about Near Intents is, yes, Near itself is a layer one ecosystem, but we see Intents as our tribute to crypto. So you really do not need to know Rust. You do not need to know the intricacies of the Near blockchain. You do not need to know the intricacies of the runtime or whatever. If you are a Stellar native developer or an EVM developer looking to tap into the Stellar ecosystem for the user base or the assets available on Stellar, all you need to do is look into the Near Intents one-click swap API. The simplest tool that we could have possibly built is out there for you to take advantage of, and you can basically implement this natively on your application on any blockchain and tap into Stellar or vice versa. So again, you do not need to do anything about Near, and that's the coolest part of it.
I'm gonna go off book and ask one more question that is not on the list. So hopefully I won't get like slammed by the comms team for doing this. But I'm wondering, like, if you were to compare the pathways on Near Intents, like let's say I want to effect a swap and I have an app that uses multiple pathways, like I could use Near Intents or I could use OneInch, or like depending on what the assets are and what I'm trying to do. Like, how efficient is it? Is there like a lot of slippage? Is, how do I know that I'm going to get a good result for my end user?
Yeah, that's a great question again. I think so. One thing we've been very focused on is enabling flexibility in the state of the swap. So let's say a swap decide. So let's say there's the best route for an asset that goes via a third asset. So we have multi-hop swaps as well, where the first part of the transaction is done through, let's say, 1-inch fusion. The second part could be done via near intent. So let's say a user wants to swap a certain asset on base to Ethereum on Ethereum mainnet, and then want to go into let's say USDC natively on Stellar. The first part could be done via some other intent-based protocol or interrupt protocol. Near intents would come in with the flexible integration here and allow a multi-hop transaction. So we are quite flexible in that regards. And in terms of slippage, we actually tap into liquidity natively available on any given blockchain. So of course there are certain limitations as to the size of the trade, which we are planning on scaling up gradually as we do a bunch of testing in production. But base liquidity will always be available to any builder or user wanting to tap into it.
Cool. I'm looking to see if there are any other comments in the chat. I don't see any other open questions. There's lots of commentary. Let's see. Cool. So I think that with that, we'll probably start to wrap up our chat. Definitely my call out for everyone is to come to Rio if you're interested in the Stellar ecosystem. There will be a hackathon before, and then 17th, 18th, so 15th, 16th is a hackathon. I think it's oversubscribed though. And then the conference itself, 17, 18 September in Rio de Janeiro. And Rashid, are you going to be there?
I unfortunately can't make it because of personal commitments, but the near team will be there, and we're so excited.
Yeah. I saw on the agenda that there's going to be a demo, or like a chat from Near. So excited to see that. I mean, I love that people from Near are coming to the Stellar conference to show what this is like. It's evidence of like the industry maturing, right? Like, you have something really great, we bring it to the Stellar ecosystem. It doesn't kind of matter like your chain, our chain. So I'm really, really pleased to see that. And then the other call out is this one-click swap API. Like, go try it out. Tell us what you think. I think all of us are out there in public channels, ready to answer your questions. And if you want to build on Stellar, come find us at stellar.org. And technical documentation about Near on. Okay, we got a good question here. Where do they find technical documentation about Near Intents on Stellar?
docs.near-intents.org. Very simple. And if you have any questions, the Telegram developer chat is quite active. So at near_intents on Telegram, that's the group. Feel free to drop by.
Awesome. So the Telegram group, or do you want to say the link one more time? I can't type in the chat.
we actually have Dehan from the Near Intents team answering the question.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
it's, yeah,
Yeah,
docs.near-intents.org.
perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Harshit. This was great. I really, really appreciate you coming and talking about all this new technology. We're really looking forward to lots of growth and use of near intents. It's a great piece of technology, and it sounds like you've got some pretty interesting things on the expansion roadmap too.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a total pleasure, and huge shout out to you and the Stellar team for being big advocates throughout and supporting us through the process. And we look forward to deepening this collaboration in the future.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a great night or morning wherever you are.
Thank you.